You're listening to the AI Moment with me, Jonathan Wagstaff.
Me, Danny Denhard.
And Dan, today, it being very close to the end of 2025, I think it's time for Danny and I to get out the crystal ball and try and make some predictions about where we think the world of AI and business is going in 2026. So we thought we'd have some fun with that. So Dan, give us your first prediction. What do you think? Where do you think this whole thing is going in 2026?
The first area I should probably call out, which on people who are positive about AI, is a big AI hack. And one of the reasons why I wanted to call it out first is because we've already seen one, which is the Claude MCP hack. And I actually think it's something that black hat hackers are openly trying to use and exploit because there's huge amounts of money available. They also already hit crypto. So it was something that it looked for crypto coins and local Bitcoin. So I think that's something that many people should just be a little bit aware of if you're in that sort of space. But I think OpenAI are going to have to be targeted. I think Agentic has got so much money built into it and invested into it. It's just something that hackers notoriously go after. And then with all of the different international players, so China, North Korea, Russia, they're all going to be looking to exploit, let's call them Western models, and then see how they can go there. So something that I've been recommending to companies that are talking to me or friends that have sort of asked my opinion is I highly recommend that you look at, security and protection against these style of hacks and how you can really limit your exposure. So that'd be my first big prediction. What's your sort of opinion on that,
So
Jonathan?
Are we talking more, Dan, than about, are we saying people hacking the big AI platforms, the big LLMs getting hacked, or are we talking about people using AI to enhance their ability to do hacking, or are we talking about both?
It's both, for sure. They're definitely going to try and target the big LLMs because of the software and the tools and the capabilities behind it. And a lot of the agentic work that it can do and take action on your behalf, that's going to be something that they're going to want to exploit. And then there are going to be hackers who are going to use AI to continuously hack and try and take down websites. So although some of the big British examples, so M&S, was unsophisticated in the sense that it was a phone call and they got around the system that way, with all the capabilities now, I think that we're going to get to the point where AI is going to be used as an assistant to assist them hacking. So that's the answer's both.
Yeah, and I think you make an important point there as well, is no matter how clever we get with our security and our AI systems, the vulnerability point quite often is people doing what's called phishing with a PH. And it's the human in the system sometimes that is the weak spot that allows the hackers to crack in. So kind of that's all on steroids going forward. So we have to be even more clever about, if you get that strange phone call or you get that weird email that can be very clever, can look realistic, and you've got to just make doubly sure that you know what you're doing. Because as you say, once you've cracked that human bit, you've got that little bit of information you need, then the AI puts it all on steroids and then you can really wreak havoc.
And if it's baked in, so imagine it's written with an LLM, which a lot of people are doing, is getting their emails and content written for them. And then it's baked into that email. So they use different sort of hyperlinks or different tools. You yourself won't know that that's necessarily happened. So I would just be mindful of is just check links if you've asked it to, you've inserted links into it to include. I've just double checked them and hover over them just to make sure that they haven't added any sort of appendices or rewritten the URL that could direct someone to somewhere else.
Yeah, that's good advice, Dan. And I think it's, I think if you look at the arc of social media over the last 20 years, I've no doubt in my mind that the people who started with social media, when those platforms first came out, Twitter, Facebook, and the other ones, were very utopian in their ideals. I think they really felt they were connecting the world and they were trying to get people to talk and be greater understanding, etc. And of course, those platforms have been manipulated by some of the more malicious players to great advantage, to do fraud and to influence politics and all the rest of it. And I think AI is all that on steroids, isn't it? It's if we use it right, it's very, very strong. But we have to be increasingly careful of those who would use it for malicious reasons. And I think that will only increase forward. So we have to be doubly vigilant. So,
does that set you up for your first prediction, Jonathan?
Well, mine is around shopping. I think we've started to see this year, we've started to see people putting little agents on, e-commerce agents, negotiation buttons. I talked a while ago about, buying a mattress for my daughter, and there was a little negotiate button there, and there's a little AI agent that negotiated with me for the final price. And we've seen this stuff going on in the States now where you can ask Google to go out and find things for you. Say, look, I want to buy a lawnmower and here's my budget. I'll go and find it. I think that's going to go on to steroids next year. I think that the sharp-eyed amongst people listening will have seen in this last month that nowadays, when you open up ChatGPT, you now get this little button at the bottom that says "Shop smarter this season," and it says "Let ChatGPT do the digging for you with in-depth research into the best deals and gifts." So this moves that people have been predicting, you and I amongst them this year, which says we're going to move from when you go looking for a product, instead of being given a list of blue links to go and check out on Google, we're going to move to the point where the LLMs will say, right, I understand the product you're looking for. I've looked at the web, I've found the best one that fits your spec, and here it is. Press the button and buy. I think that's coming quicker than some people thought. And I think that's going to be a big change next year. We'll see it move quickly. And I think by this time next year, we'll be fully immersed in that kind of approach. Now, that's got implications for our websites, for our e-commerce systems, for what information we put out there, because we've got to allow we've got to allow the AI to find out the things it needs to find out so it can recommend our product. So we've probably got to be more transparent about the products. We've probably got more transparent about the pricing. And just to finish on that, Dan, is what I'm hearing from people who know more about this stuff than me is that actually then rules out things like discounting, because what the AI wants to see is consistency in things like pricing. So if you're constantly jumping the price around, that's going to hurt you. Don't know if that's true or not. That's what I'm being told. So for me, my number one thing for next year is shopping and commerce. And I think we'll see a rapid acceleration in how things get recommended for people to buy online. Any thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, very much aligned as usual. I would say that there are many channels which will be impacted by this. So affiliates is one that clearly they're going to have to re-engineer how a lot of that works. So if your business has affiliates and uses affiliates as, a core traffic driver or a business driver, that's something you're going to have to consider. I've got a couple of counterpoints around OpenAI and ChatGPT. I would say that they haven't necessarily understood how people really shop online, and they don't necessarily understand that people yet have a high level of trust. So some people will no doubt have a high level of trust with them, and they trust them with all the information, health information, financial information. User behavior and user shifts take a long time to shift over. In the UK, for instance, John Lewis is one. I know this from working in the industry for a long time. People trust very specific websites, and they trust very specific companies, and they will trust it on a very specific credit card. So when we're thinking there's going to be these big momentum shifts, we just have to be mindful that when we talk around the users, it very much likely will still be the early adopters. It will still be, if we're looking at crossing the chasm, it will still be the first two tranches of it, as opposed to the standard user. And I think with the way that we're shifting, we just have to be a little bit mindful of what that is. And the second thing is, online, there's a lot of companies that rely on demand-based pricing. So if agents and bots and assistants come on the website and then they come back, there's still this cookie trouble that they have of putting a cookie on and understanding, can they charge you more for that transaction? And will everything look like an incognito mode with no history, or will it actually understand that it'll be semi-automated or agentic that does that? So ChatGPT have got a really hard line to cross, and have to make really hard decisions on that. So that would just be my one mindful piece, is actually, could they navigate that successfully without a load of issues? I'm not sure the way that they're operating at the moment. They're there. But Google have already rolled this out in AI mode in the US and trying to save people money, and doing what Pinterest and other companies do, is setting a price or showing an interest, and then it serves you, once the price drops, it serves you the content and asks you whether you want to buy it. So interestingly, I think Google might be the one that pushes the industry forward while dragging along some of the other LLMs and AI players in the space. Again, I think AI is a huge accelerator, and I don't want to discount all of the work that it can do. I just know human behavior is hard to change. It's almost impossible to change. And the way that some companies work so rigorously and rigidly around a spreadsheet, I can't imagine so many companies will want to change the way that they operate just to appease ChatGPT.
I think I agree with you on a couple of things there. I agree this will be subject to the technology adoption curve. So innovators, early adopters, early majority, as you say, crossing the chasm, that will play. And I agree. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand trust signals are going to be very, very important. So those trust signals might be brand. If you're someone like John Lewis, established brand and confidence in the brand, but they're also going to be the way you behave online. Can somebody find out about you and your product easily? Do they believe that stuff? Can they get the pricing? Where I might differ from you, Dan, is I think them, and I'm not hung up on it being ChatGPT. I don't know who's going to win the LLM battle, or the Google are well placed, as we talked about on a recent pod. But where I think it might accelerate is I think because this technology will allow people to get better pricing, faster access to product, I think it might move. By this time next year, I think we could be well into early majority. I think you're going to get the early adopters going early with it now. But I think if you've got something which is like, I'm now saving lots of money by doing it this way, somebody's talking to the next door neighbor and saying, I've saved all these things. I think that might drive an accelerated adoption of whichever one it is. If it's Google, if it's Claude, if it's, whatever one it is, or whatever, however it gets delivered. And obviously the other thing is that some of the big vendors like Amazon will, I think, have their own way of making this stuff happen as well. But I think the AI shopping, the AI assisted shopping, I think is going to come quick because the herd mentality you talk about is absolutely true, and people resist change unless there's a very clear advantage, and then they move quickly. And I think by this time next year, we might have seen that move. But I agree, it's not going to happen in the first quarter. So
If this is a feature for some of the AI companies and LLMs, I predict that people might have to pay to save. So they might actually have to have a subscription to use a lot of these services. So that's the one area I think, because as I've said a number of times, AI in 2026 is the year of ROI. So whether they can create these features that people will pay for, what's his name? Martin Money Saving Expert has been around for Martin Lewis. He's been around for a number of years and finds people numerous ways to save. Yet a lot of people, because it isn't convenient or it takes them a long time to try and go through all the different nuances, unless it's really easy, I think there still might be some struggles around the adoption. But I'm 100% behind. Actually, I think people are going to be far more trusting, and a lot of startups are going to be behind the push to adopt AI shopping and actually invest a huge amount they might lose a lot of money up front to get people to change their behavior. So I'm behind it. I just think we should be mindful around human behavior and what it takes to change it.
And of course, it's got a lot of implications for how we set up our websites, our e-commerce. That's a conversation for another day, but there's a whole set of implications around that as we see the sort of AI assisted commerce start to move into the mainstream next year. So that's one we'll come back to, Dan. Conscious of time, what else are we going to predict for 2026? When we gaze into our crystal ball, what do we see?
For me, it's the era of multiplayer AI versus single player AI. And what I mean by that is teams will be working with AI alongside them in LLMs, and they won't just be in Slack channels or team channels. They won't just be sitting in your own Google Doc or your own Microsoft Word example. I think there'll be a small adoption curve where people will start using LLMs to help them as a team working and create working environments, because it gets lock-in from the LLMs. It creates behavior shifts, which we've said how difficult they are, but the LLMs are going to have to be ones that change that. And also, I think what it's going to be doing is driving better connected work. So colleagues cross-functionally will be working together on these things as opposed to against each other when they all use different tools. So I think the multiplayer AI is the arena which will be the thing that bubbles under the surface and then really leaks out to captivate users and companies to go all in on their LLM or all in on their set of tools.
I think for that to happen, the thing I think is in the way is that I'm seeing lots of organizations where they're struggling to structure their experiments with AI. So I think there's stuff going on, and we've talked about this before, and I know we've got plans to talk about some more of this stuff going forward. But that process of moving from, okay, we're interested and we kind of understand what it might do for us, to we have got some really concrete examples of how it's helping the business. There's not a consistency about how businesses do that right now. And I think you need that before you get to the point you're talking about. I think that's where people are trying to get to, because the logical extension of what you're talking about is you actually end up with a department where some of the activity is agentic. So, and now instead of having 5 people in the department, we can now grow the department to 3 or 4 times the size it was. You can grow our activity to 3 or 4 times the size it was with 5 people and 4 or 5 agentic AI systems in that department. So the agents become kind of part people or partly doing the work of workers. So I think we're going to get there. I just think there's some things in the way right now. There's some things that aren't yet well worked out in enterprises that will allow us to get there.
Yeah, also, just to top on what you said, that was one of the other areas I wasn't going to cover today, but probably you'll share it in the supporting newsletter, is I think actually team members will be able to manage their bots and agents and actually give it budget to go and hire certain things or take on certain actions. So I think that's connected, because once you get people built into the ecosystem and you get teams working in it, you'll then have all the unlocks around agentic behavior, team members and activities that you don't want to do anymore, so you can pass off to AI.
Indeed. So I'm now going to take us, Dan, into the murky world of politics and democracy. And one of the areas I think we're going to see some real acid test stuff this year is, obviously we've got the American midterm elections in the back half of the year. There's other elections around the world, but I think we are still early in the days of some of the more unscrupulous players using AI to try and influence elections. And again, if we go back over the last 10 years or so, we've seen heavily how social media was used as a tool to spread information, disinformation, influence people, learn about them. And we saw all the Cambridge Analytica stuff and Palantir stuff, where they really are learning about people's preferences and behaviors and how persuadable they might be to vote for one party or another. And I think AI, again, puts that on steroids. And I think there's a real acid test for democracy this year about how far things can be pushed using AI, how far we're prepared to let them be pushed using AI, how well can we detect that things are being pushed using AI. Amongst my predictions for 2026 is pressure on democracy and AI being used to try and influence elections. Have I got that right, Dan? Have I got that wrong? Where do you think? Am I worrying too much there? What do you think is going on?
No, I 100% agree. It's number 20 on my list. So I definitely agree. There's some areas I think how you can start thinking around it is AI content is super cheap to create, if not free, for a lot of people and companies and different organizations that might want to exploit it. There are deep fakes everywhere. What we might have said AI slop before, but deep fakes are something that so many people are falling for. We talked around it before. Facebook, there's a lot on there that people are falling for constantly. There's a lot of things on TikTok and that people will call out. But with video, it seems far more relatable because it seems really difficult to create that sort of content. So I think deepfakes is going to be something we have to be more and more mindful of. Voice as well. So where people are using clip-ins, I think voice is something we have to be really mindful of, because you can take pre-recorded voice and information and then put it over the top of previous TV segments, so people will feel that is super well done, or it's actually really true. And then how I think, because of the scale and the cost of it now, because you can scale it much quicker, it's far more accelerated, it's so cheap. This is just going to be something I think is going to flood not only social media, but I think WhatsApp, iMessage and groups across all the different chat apps. Meta or someone goes really hard and heavy on verifying that information, which they just aren't going to do. It's going to be down to the individuals to police it themselves. And people just don't have the time. Headlines used to influence elections. I think now it's going to be the fun scrolling entertainment content that that takes the mick out of one of the candidates or really discounts what they've done. So we were going to be in a cross between Black Mirror and the well-known Netflix show that I can't think of right now, House of Cards. It's going to be a mix between Black Mirror and House of Cards, I think.
Yeah, I think first of all, you don't have to spend very long playing with Nano Banana 3 to realize how far that stuff has come. And as you say, extraordinary ability to create very, very convincing short clips of, of Donald Trump or Keir Starmer or whoever you want, whoever you want to go after or either promote or denigrate. And then I think about the work I've done in workshops this summer, and even in some of the sort of more professional organizations, you might have 10 people in a workshop. 2 or 3 have never touched AI at that point as you start the workshop. Now that's in kind of some of the more educated, advanced parts of the society. So there's lots and lots of people out there who've never touched AI still. And the interesting bit for those people, when you show them, is that they're amazed at what it can do. So I have a big concern that there's a large chunk of the population that doesn't realize how clever the AI is and can't imagine that it could produce the sort of thing that Nano Banana 3 can produce in terms of a fake, right? So they see something and it really does look like Donald Trump. It really does look like he's saying this, that, or the next thing. And they're going to believe it. Or, Keir Starmer if you want. And so I think we've got a education concern and I don't know whether there's some kind of policing people could do or they want to do. I don't know. I just think we've got some big challenges in 2026 in that space.
Do you want to do a quick fire round? If I fire some ideas off to you, you say whether you think it's going to happen in 2026 or not?
Yeah, go then. Let's do that.
How about AGI or superintelligence?
I don't think we're getting there in 2026. I think there's 2 pieces to that. One, I think we're on the way, and it's inevitable. I'd be surprised if we get there in 2026. I think we're not ready for it. There's not enough being done about, well, okay, so if we achieve superintelligence, where does that leave everything? So I think what should happen in 2026 should be some serious thinking about it and how we're going to handle it as and when it might happen. What do you think?
Me personally, I don't think we're going to get there for a number of years yet, if we do at all. How about ChatGPT is finished by Gemini? Gemini kills off ChatGPT in usage, not necessarily in business.
I don't think we're going to, not in 26. I don't think we're going to get there. I do think there'll be consolidation. I think they'll start in 26. I could see Anthropic being bought by somebody. So I could see Claude coming out of the mix as a separate product. I think Sam's got enough momentum that he's certainly going to survive 2026. But as we've talked about in a previous pod, Google have got some big advantages right now and they are roaring up the curve. So I see a battle there. I do see some consolidation in the space of the smaller players. I don't think ChatGPT dies in the next 12 months. What's your thought?
Agree and agree. Completely agree and agree. Do you think Meta are going to come out and address and fix their AI problems, or do you think they're just going to go quiet, stay quiet?
I don't know on that one. I've really not got a strong opinion. I don't really know enough about what's going on deep inside Meta. I've got some views on it, but I don't want to comment on that one. You got any thoughts?
I think they're going to improve it in WhatsApp and make people want to use it in WhatsApp. But I think other than that, apart from on the Meta glasses, I don't think they're strong enough. They're too far away to really break through. 2 more for you, Jonathan. Do you think we're going to get any health breakthroughs? Do you think we're going to find any, anything in the illness space or the cancer space? Do you think we have a major breakthrough?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I think one of the really strong places that the technology is being used at the moment is in things like, protein modeling, in drug design. And obviously the big pharmaceutical companies have got the muscle to spend the money to do the work. I think, we've seen the GLP-1 drugs and what they've done to people's health and weight. And I would be optimistic that there's more on the horizon from that point of view. I think there's some really interesting things. And also I think it helps with this kind of gene therapy stuff where you start to get medicine that's more individualized to the individual. So you get drugs that it's a version of a drug that's designed for you, but as opposed to for the general population. I see more in that space, and that's got to be AI assisted. So I see progress in that area done. How about you?
I do too. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of trials that are going to be run really quickly and analysed and approved much more quickly. So that's my hot take on that. And just the last one, do you think Apple are going to make any headway in AI at all next year?
I wouldn't want to bet against them. So I think they will make headway. But as I said, I see more of consolidation in the space than new entrants making a significant difference. I'm not sure, for instance, they could buy Anthropic, right? That's one of the things they could do as part of their movement into the space. They have a track record of trying to get into certain spaces and then giving up and buying. So you think of Beats Audio was a good example where they were trying to get into headphone space, really didn't crack it, and so bought Beats as a way of shortcutting that jump. That could be their jump into AI. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the Apple boardroom. What's your view?
I think that they're going to crack the first SLM, really, a small language model. And I actually think they're going to work out how to help people with small tasking automations within, say, Spotlight Search, where you pull down on the iPhone or the iPad, or press the search. And I think actually they're going to work out how to get it to help with reminders, shortcuts, and work within iMessage, Safari, and Calendar. So I do think, and Mail, I do think they're going to have a small breakthrough, but I don't see them having a huge impact. Right, Jonathan, there's a lot for people to take away, think around. If you have any of your own hot takes, or you disagree or agree with any of those, just drop us an email, ai@dannydenhard.com, and we'll happily read them out and call them out or have a chat on LinkedIn on it. So thanks a lot for your input and your advice to people and your predictions, Jonathan, and we'll see how they do in 2026.
Good to see you, my friend, and I will see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for listening today, everyone. If you liked what you heard, please give us a rating and review in any of the podcast players. We have a supporting newsletter, which is aimoment.co.uk, that comes out on Mondays and Fridays with every pod, and we dive a little bit deeper. So please subscribe there. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.